So Jason Witten, I haven't heard a lot from him lately, but recently he came out and spoke about his former team, the Dallas Cowboys, talked about how he felt the team had little to no weaknesses, and of course this was picked up by First Things First. If you don't know, it's a talk show with Nick Wright and Chris Broussard. So with it, they spoke about how they feel about how Jason Witten had to say, and interestingly enough, Nick Wright did actually put an argument together for the Dallas Cowboys that I did not think he would do. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into this. Now, when it comes to Nick Wright, I haven't listened to the dude in quite some time. It's been so long that I haven't listened to him, I didn't realize my guy grew out hair. That's crazy, and I did not know he did that until recently. So, with all that being said, before we get into what he had to say, we need to first establish what did Jason Witten exactly say, and then we can kind of get a sense of what Nick Wright is going to talk about. So before we begin, I have an article from SI.com that spoke about what Jason Witten had to say. In fact, they interviewed him. So we're going to go over that, then we're going to get into Nick Wright's comments. The Dallas Cowboys will disappoint their expansive fan base if they fail to make any headway in the upcoming NFL playoffs. Count Jason Witten among those, however, who think positive headway is on the horizon. I don't see really any weaknesses in that football team, Witten said of his old squad. Speaking with PopCulture, Witten expressed high hopes for the Cowboys as they prepare to embark on a postseason run. Dallas has an outside shot at the NFC's top playoff seed and the first round bye that comes with it when they take on the Washington Commanders on Sunday, but they are nonetheless guaranteed consecutive playoff berths for the first time since 2006-2007. No matter where Dallas ends up on the 7-team NFC bracket, Witten believes this group is well built for a championship run that for Cowboys Nation has taken far too long to realize. I think they're positioned really in a good spot, Witten said of the modern Cowboys. I don't see any real weaknesses in that football team. There are a lot of other teams that are good out there too, the Eagles, so it's not going to get easy. But I think they're positioned to make a strong push here at the end of the year, and then ultimately even make a bigger push when they get to the playoffs. Wynn mentioned how the team has adapted and improved since its Week 1 loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who ironically stand as their most likely opponent coming up in the postseason on January 14th through 16th. Dallas's Week 1 effort against the Bucs was a listless 19-3 defeat, one that saw Dak Prescott endure a thumb injury in the later stages. You think back to where they started. They lost the first game. Dak gets hurt. He's going to be out for Cooper Rush, and any backup to come in and to play that well and to get those wins, Witten said. Now Dak is back. I think it gave a lot of those supporting casts some confidence. They're playing at a high level right now, scoring a lot of points, and defensively, they're not giving up as much. They can get to the quarterback, and they can cover, play good on special teams. Now, with that being said, I'm going to just skip right into what Nick Wright has to say, and then we're going to fully discuss it and give my opinion on the matter.
I think you are way too down on the Cowboys. Now, I'm in a weird spot because I agree, and by agree I mean I've been saying for a month, that Tampa is destined to go on some very annoying playoff run, and that would almost assuredly mean they beat Dallas. However, I think one could make a very compelling argument that of all the NFC contenders, the Cowboys have the least glaring weaknesses. Now, the reason I'm not picking them is I also think they don't have a singular strength like the San Francisco defense
Well, the defense, I mean, the pass rush, the pass defense.
No, but I think the San Francisco defense is better. Yeah. I think the magical pixie dust of Brady is impactful. Listen, I've just seen it for 2 decades. Of course. It doesn't matter. The point is this. I think for the Cowboys, you talk about the Cowboys like, they're lucky to sneak in the playoffs. They've lost 4 times this year. Hold on, let's talk about those losses, though. First loss, first game of the year. Bad game, poorly played. Their quarterback also broke his thumb.
Well,
second loss. I understand. The second loss was with their backup quarterback against the current number 1 seed. Since Dak has been back, they have lost twice, both games in overtime. Once to arguably the most talented quarterback ever, and the other to Aaron Rodgers.
Okay.
Well, I'm just telling you. I mean, it's just what it was. It was to the Prince and Aaron Rodgers. I'm just telling you. So since Dak's been back, Brew, they've lost 2 times, both in overtime, both against teams that are currently alive for the postseason. So this dysfunction you're describing, I understand they are messy. I agree with that. But they are a high-scoring team with a potent defense. I think the strength is actually their offense.
Yeah.
I think last year they're a high-scoring offense in the league. This year they're a top. I understand
and we saw what happened in the playoffs.
I get it. I am not sitting here guaranteeing the Cowboys go on some long run. But you have been guaranteeing for months they won't. And what I'm saying is, I think, this team's upside is incredibly high. That this team...
Now, haven't I said
right,
that?
but
the ceiling's as high as anyone in the NFC.
So I don't know, but what I guess I don't understand is why you're so convinced they can't reach that for a couple of games.
Or a couple of games. Here's what I'm convinced of. There is a 50-50 chance. When they step out on the field, when they come through the tunnel and get on the field, there's a 50% chance they might bring their F game. That's what I'm. I mean, and I know. Look,
we don't have evidence of that this year.
I know that you don't look at close wins over bad teams as a problem because that's what the Chiefs.
That's what every team in the league does. That's my point. Hold on, the Chiefs are arguably. Hold on, stop for a second.
You look at these close games over bad
everybody
teams.
has them.
Dallas has had a number of them
and
recently.
Dallas has also sscored 33-0 in a fourth quarter against a team. Dallas has also
Jeff Saturday's
and they've also blown out the Vikings. So here's the thing. Of course, I don't look at close wins in the NFL as a bad thing because everybody has them. And if the argument is, oh, the Chiefs do it, this isn't a defense of the Chiefs. One could argue the Chiefs are the best team in football, and even they do it. For you to say half the time the Cowboys bring their F game, then how are they 12-4, having missed their quarterback for a third of the games? If half the time they bring their F game, why have they not lost in regulation with their starting quarterback since week 1?
And it's really hard to argue against what he's saying here. I mean, look, realistically, the Dallas Cowboys' major glaring weakness is themselves. That's just the point-blank period of it. You know, there are other things involved, which we'll get into in just a second, but I think when you look at Dallas, right, look at what's happened since Dak Prescott has returned. The Cowboys have had 2 losses, which were both in overtime. The Green Bay loss, right, you were up 14 points in the fourth quarter, and you pissed that away. It went to overtime, and you lost the game. Whether the Cowboys should have won that game because of bullshit penalties or no penalties called, that's not here to say there. But the biggest thing I want to get at is that the Dallas Cowboys put up 28 points, and their defense let them down at the very end. We very much remember that. Now we go to the Jacksonville game. They were up 17 points, right? And LVE goes out, and what do? They go after Kelvin Joseph. Dak Prescott throws an interception. And in fact, the Dallas Cowboys had a chance to win the game late if it wasn't for the bullshit that happened. And then they were driving to win the game because if Noah Brown catches that pass, instead of him being a dumb fuck and letting the ball fly up into the air because he can't catch it, that's probably a first down instead of an interception to pick 6, and the Cowboys maybe go on to win that game, and we're having a different dialogue here. Those are the only 2 losses the Dallas Cowboys had. They were self-inflicted losses. That is no excuse, but when you think about it that way, every other game they have won, they have done their part. Even in the losses, the Cowboys have put up at minimum 24 to 27 points a game. It's really been defensively, if they can't get stops or takeaways, they lose these games. And, you know, that's really how the Green Bay game went, and then it was piss poor management towards the tail end of the Jacksonville game that got them there, plus poor player execution here and there. So listen, guys, I understand that we as fans of the Cowboys, we are very, 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 fixated on them having a deep playoff run. But let's also, because, Chris Broussard was talking about how, the Cowboys are a dysfunctional team and this, that, and third. Now, we are aware that the Cowboys operate completely differently than any other football club in the United States, in the NFL, you name it, right? My biggest thing is this, right, is that, to use the past history as, like for what's happening this season. Like, guys, this is the first time since 06-07 we've gone back-to-back to the postseason. We could see a situation where Dallas goes back-to-back division titles for the first time since 95-96, or even, they just did it back-to-back 12-plus win seasons since 94-95. Like, it's been a long time since Dallas has done that. But, does that have any bearing on what they did this season? No, absolutely not. I think it just shows you that coaching matters in this sense, right? And having good players matter. I think when Nick talks about how the Cowboys' strength is their offense, I would say, that's going to be the primary reason they're going to win some games. I understand defense can win you championships, and we will see, because the key difference from this go-around than previous years that we've seen is that the Cowboys have difference makers. They have a Trevon Diggs. They have Deron Bland. Those guys can take the ball away from you. Then you have guys that can, get pressure. You have Micah frickin' Parsons. You have DeMarcus Lawrence. You have all these other jumbles of guys, and you have Damone Clark coming into his own. You have guys that are able to perform and give you solid reps. However, where I think Dallas has glaring weaknesses, of course we have the injuries and stuff like that. I think with the offensive line, I think the left side still has some issues because, you got Tyler Smith who's young, and, we really need to be careful there. I think with the offensive weaponry, Dallas has kind of fixed this problem because the initial issue was I felt like they needed an extra oomph, which T.Y. Hilton has been really applying for the Cowboys. And then you look at the defensive side of the ball, the questions in the secondary. Who's going to step up in the safety room because the safety play has been so-so. Then you have the cornerbacks, which you're just trying to figure out what's going to work, which I think the Dallas Cowboys have figured that out. And then you're kind of hoping with LVE coming back in this linebacking core, playing a little bit better with him back in there, because he was one of the primary reasons you lost that Jacksonville game, surprisingly. So I do believe that, with him back in the fold, you're going to get Jonathan Hankins back, right? So the Cowboys, realistically, their weaknesses are on the left side of the offensive line and their secondary. That's pretty much it, and the health. That's pretty much for any team. So, the Dallas Cowboys have also been tested this season, right? They've been in numerous situations where they had to close out games. And think about it this way, right? The score ended the same way in the Jacksonville game as it did in the Philadelphia game. What's the main difference? The Cowboys closed out the Eagles as they should have done the Jacksonville Jaguars, right? And I think that's something that they are learning. They're taking that into account. They're winning games that you would think they're not supposed to, a la the Texans game and all that other stuff. And you see what happens in the Eagles game. That stuff matters. People look at that and they say, like, when we looked at what happened last season, and I've been very big on this, the Dallas Cowboys of last year were able to coast for a good majority of the season, even into the later stretches, and they didn't have to worry about, we can lose 3 out of 4 games and we'll still be leading the NFC East. This go around, they have no margin for error, and me, personally, I think they've been playing playoff football realistically since the Jacksonville game. So I think them getting tested as they go through all of these games, they've only had one home game since Jacksonville. They only had the one home game, which was their last one, unless they win the division. So I do think that the Dallas Cowboys are a very battle-tested bunch. Now again, you're going to most likely be going on the road against Tampa Bay, which that is not going to be easy, but that's a huge win for you. That would be an emotional win. Then that could take you on the road and you can lean into that. But listen, I personally believe that the Dallas Cowboys do have flaws just like other teams, but the biggest thing of all is if the Cowboys don't step in their own way and their own success, I think they have a chance. Like any other team, they do have a chance, regardless of who they have to face. Just because you have a chance doesn't mean it's a guarantee, and that's something that a lot of people get messed up on. So, for me, we'll see how things pan out. I appreciate what Nick Wright had to say here because he brought up some solid points, and, I don't really have to say much on that, but just give you my opinion. So with that being said, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I will catch you guys in the next one, and have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.